The other day, I found one of my high school yearbooks. We just had our 25-year reunion a couple of months ago, and let me just tell you, a yearbook from 25 years ago, that's a dangerous thing, especially when your kids are the age that you were when you graduated high school or older, okay? So that's where my kids are, and it's weird. Like, the world's a different place now than it was. A yearbook is not just a book. It's evidence. And it lasts forever. Evidence that all of us at one point lived through seasons where we made fashion choices with so much confidence. And I found some old pictures of me. I had 5 earrings and a big old hemp necklace and orange hair. And so the 90s were a fun time. It was a good time. And so, like, when you're looking through that, man, but somewhere in the middle of all the laughing and the looking at the awkward signatures people wrote, I'm like, why would you ever write that to someone else? And I hope no one ever reads this. It hit me, this phrase. Man, people do change. Isn't that a big, important point? People do change, and it's not just on the outside. It can be on the inside. Sometimes life just changes you. You have a couple kids, that'll change you. Get married, that'll change you. Sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it's for the bad. Pain will change you, hurt will change you. Relationships can mess you up sometimes. Sometimes, and I'm really proud of my classmates, so many of them that I've seen through social media and stuff, man, they've really, their life has turned around in a good way. Jesus has changed them and turned them into different people. Today is Easter, and I want to jump into the story of a woman who changed so much that she actually stands as evidence of exactly why Christianity is important. And so if you got your Bibles today, I want to go ahead and get you to grab them. You're going to want to put your thumb in a couple places. John chapter 20 is going to be one of them. Luke chapter, 8. And then Mark chapter, I'll tell you the chapter when I get there. Mark, Luke, and John. Luke 8, John 20 is where we're going to start. So get there real quick. Because we've been in this teaching series called Search Party for a little while. And the whole idea is inviting to join in the mission of Jesus. Jesus said, I have come to seek and save the lost. Now, if you missed any of the series, no worries. You won't miss anything today. We actually record all of our sermons. They're on a podcast. You can go to any podcast player, look for Venture Church Wilmington. We bank all of our sermons in video form on YouTube by playlist for each sermon series. If you want to go back and catch up, or you'd rather watch it than listen to it, that's really good too. But Jesus said his mission was to seek and to save the lost, and he invites us to join him on that mission as we seek to find people and bring them far from God, closer to God. And today on Easter Sunday, we're wrapping up with this big idea. This is the big idea, and it's for Easter, and it's for the series, and it's really for your life, that change in your life can be the most powerful evidence of God's grace. Change in your life can be the most powerful evidence of God's grace, and it's exactly what other people need to see as they're searching for truth. And so I want to introduce you to somebody today, maybe one of the most underrated people in the Bible, a woman who had been searching for change. She was just consumed by darkness and evil in her life, and her name is Mary Magdalene. You familiar with this lady? So flip over to John chapter 20. John is one of the 4 biographies of the life of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we follow the stories of Jesus, his life and his teachings and what he wants from us. And we meet a lot of really good friends of his as he goes through this. In John chapter 20, starting in verse 1, you really get like the Easter story. This is the quintessential moment of the Easter story. People across the world are preaching from this very passage all day today. And this is what it says. We're going to read the first 2 verses. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been rolled away or removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon and Peter and the other disciples, the one Jesus loved, and said, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they put him. Pause that right there. So what's going on here? I'm guessing many of you, most of you, probably know the Easter story. Like, what are we celebrating on Resurrection Sunday? But for those who may not have heard it clearly, or for maybe you probably need just a reminder, let me just remind you what's going on here. As Mary's walking up to this tomb and she finds it empty. So like 3.5 years earlier, this guy Jesus hits the scene, and he's this amazing and well-respected teacher. And at first, people are just like, wow, he just says really true things. I want to follow him. I want to learn more about him. But then he starts doing these signs and wonders. He does miracles. He heals blind people. He makes lame people who are paralyzed get up and walk. He helps someone walk on water. He raises people from the dead. He's not just a good teacher. He's something bigger, something more. He taught with an authority that made the people listening to him being like, man, it sounds like he's not just interpreting God. It sounds like he's like maybe directly from God. And the religious leaders of the area who had very much control over the people, they didn't like the popularity he was gaining. Actually, thousands of people started to flock around him just to listen to him teach, just to get a chance to brush up against him or touch his garment. The religious leaders in Jerusalem were getting more and more uncomfortable with who Jesus was, and it all came to a head in Jerusalem during a celebration of a Jewish holiday called Passover. So Mary's walking up to this tomb on a Sunday morning, but if you back up to the week before, they'd been in Jerusalem doing all kinds of partying and fun for a whole week, and it's been a lot of fun. But as it culminated to the end of the week on Friday, Jesus is having dinner with his friends. They go out to an area to pray at nighttime, and he's arrested in the middle of the night. And he's dragged off through a series of illegal trials. I mean, they were illegal. They were against Jewish laws, the things that these people did and forced him to go through. He was publicly mocked. He was beaten. And by Friday afternoon, he would be crucified on a cross outside the city. That's kind of the first half of the Easter story. Now, his followers were devastated. Many of them ran away and hid. They were terrified of what might happen because these people arrested Jesus and killed him. We're right there with him. We're saying the same stuff that he's saying. These guys had given up everything to follow Jesus. Their careers, their reputations, their safety. And it all seemed to have died with Jesus on the cross. Each one of them had a story where Jesus had come in and rewritten their life. He'd found them in various states, and he had helped them experience change. And they were not the people that they used to be. But now he was gone. So what does any of that mean? And now Mary Magdalene is walking to the tomb. And she'd gone to carry out some burial customs for their culture. She had taken some spices and some oils, and she was going to kind of prepare the body in a special way. But when she got there, she found that the stone had already been rolled away. Now, that's interesting. You don't always just put a stone in front of a grave this early, especially on a holiday weekend and on Sabbath, which was a day when, Jews didn't move heavy stones. This was because Jesus was like a political target. The Roman authorities didn't want anybody. People had been saying Jesus was going to raise from the dead. They didn't want anybody to come in and claim they had risen Jesus by stealing his body, so they had taken this huge boulder that would have taken a lot of people to move and all kinds of stuff. And Mary was probably planning on being like, and she might not even known the boulder was there, but she walks up and it's just gone. Now, that's the kickoff to the Easter story, and we're going to pause there in John 20, okay? So keep your thumb right in that place in your Bible. We're going to get back to it. But before we do, I want to understand, who is this lady? Who is Mary Magdalene? Why is she so prominent in this really important story? Well, to find her, we got to go back to the beginning of her story. So if you got your Bibles, now look back to Luke chapter 8. Luke chapter 8, 1 through 3, we meet Mary Magdalene. It's a very short story about Mary, and you'll find out what she's got going on. So here we are. Luke chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. Let me find it too. So this is in the middle of Jesus' kind of ministry stuff that's going on. After this, Jesus traveled about from one town and village to another, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. The 12 were with him. These are his closest followers. And also some women who had been cured of evil spirits and diseases. In your English translation, it has colon, and it's going to list these ladies. Mary, called Magdalene, of whom 7 demons had come out. Joanna, we learn about her. And Susanna, we learn about her. They're not instrumental to our story today, but they're very important. These women were helping to support them out of their own means. Now, I don't know if you've ever stopped to pay attention to this little detail in the story, but right here, we're getting introduced to 3 pivotal women in this entourage of Jesus. Like, one of the unique things about Jesus as a rabbi, as a teacher, is that he let women come be his disciples. It was a really cool thing. Like, this is a culture, we're talking first century, we're talking Middle Eastern. Okay, so you can imagine, like, women are not getting a lot of liberation here. But Jesus is not just making them do housework and go fetch the water. He's letting them sit at his feet and learn with the men. It's huge, it's pivotal, it's monumental, and it's not the only thing that made Jesus' ministry so unique. But we meet these ladies. Now, we're going to meet Susanna and Joanna. Like I said, they're important, but we don't actually get much more about their story. We know that they're there, and then we don't hear much else about them. But then did you catch how casually they dropped Mary Magdalene's background? Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons came out. And then let's just keep going. Like, where's that story? Like, I want to know that story. What's going on in that story? This is the only biographical information we have on Mary Magdalene, by the way. We have her name, Mary. We have the name Magdalene. We learn a little bit from that. Magdalene, she might have been from a little town on the Sea of Galilee called Magdala. So she might have more like technically been called Mary the Magdalene, or, it's like, this is like, that was her people. That's kind of neat. You didn't know that. It wasn't just her last name. That's a potential. Some people think also that Magdalene may have been given later as kind of an honorific, like a title that they gave her, because the word Magdalene, and there's a Hebrew word that sounds very similar, that it can also mean the magnified. So Mary the magnified, that'd be cool. But she just comes down to us as Mary Magdalene. So that's just what we're going to call her today. And oh yeah, this little tidbit. 7 demons have come out of this lady. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not done yet. 6, 7 demons. That's a can of worms to get into today. 7 demons? And we don't talk about demons that often in our American culture. We're kind of like, that's just kind of like fairy tales, right? Like, I don't know. But when you go to other places in the world, you real quick realize, like, that's just not fairy tales. We just ignore it and call it something different. But this is really big. Jesus believed in demons. He talked about them a lot. You know, one of the original ministries of the church, like one of the main purposes was to go and deliver people from demonic possession. I've experienced some demonic stuff in my life. We don't have time for that. I promise you, some of you know some of my stories. But I've seen it both abroad and in the States. And I'll tell you what my understanding of demons is. I believe in them. And based on what I've seen, they make me believe in Jesus the most. If you ask me why do I believe in Jesus, I'll point to several specific moments in my life where I saw that. And so I understand this to mean that Mary had been overtaken by 7 very powerful, evil, spiritual beings. This isn't just a mental health disorder. This is, she has lost the ability to control her own self. These people would be seen as insane. Likely drooling on herself and filthy and living in a corner somewhere. That lady was the lady who found the empty tomb. Because something happened. Jesus showed up. And he changed everything for her. And so she joins the traveling companions of Jesus and she begins supporting his ministry by her own means. Did you catch that? So it's kind of understood that the ladies that were part of the entourage, while the disciples were going around and learning and teaching, a lot of the ladies actually did things from village to village to earn money to help pay for these traveling vagabonds. They all had to eat. They all needed new sandals every now and then, right? They're also helping people. So I imagine they gave their food away a lot. And they're like, all right. And the ladies are like, it's on us again. We'll go do some more laundry. We'll go help clean somebody's house. I mean, these are very real practical things. And so that's really neat. So Mary, who had been broken, she becomes a contributor to the most important ministry to ever happen in this world. The one who had been defined by imprisonment was now defined by the one who set her free. She gets to be present for some of the most amazing things in the history of the world. She's traveling with Jesus and the other disciples, and he's teaching, and he's shutting down opponents, and he's doing miracles upon miracles, and she's like, oh my goodness, did I just see that? And you know what else he's doing? Delivering people from demonic possession. Can you imagine the stories that Mary would tell? Oh man, let me tell you about what I was like when he first found me. Not to mention, imagine a girl and her mom who go with their family to watch Jesus preach, and there are these ladies, and they're right up there, and they get to talk to Mary, and they get to learn her story, and they're like, oh my goodness. And they got Mary posters in their bedrooms. Man, people can change. Think of all the cool Bible stories that you know about, if you know Bible stories. I mean, Peter and John, and they do all these long speeches, and they go toe-to-toe with like world leaders, and they get books in the Bible named after them. And Mary was right there for all of it. So when the Jewish leaders showed up to arrest Jesus, and the trial happened, and Jesus was marched down the street holding his own cross, and he'd been beaten, and he was bleeding, and he was wearing this crown of really long, sharp thorns on his head because they were mocking him because people were saying he was going to be the next king of the Jews. Mary was there. She was there. Let's flip to Mark chapter 15. And we meet one more time Mary. This is near the very end of the book of Mark. Mark chapter 15, starting at verse 37. Mary was there. In verse 37, it says, with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The curtain of the temple was torn from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, surely this man was the Son of God. And some women were watching from a distance. Along with them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James the Younger and of Joseph and Salome. In Galilee, these women had followed him and cared for his needs. Many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem were also there. And so Mary's at the cross. You know, most of the disciples had run and hid. They were terrified of what might happen to them, but Mary is still there. Actually, a benefit that she was a lady. They were like, there's no way some woman was involved in this. So she gets to get as close as she's allowed to get, and she watches him take his last breath. Have you ever been in the room when someone took their last breath? I have. That's hard. But this is the guy that had changed her life. 7 demons. In verse 47, if you just keep looking down, it says that she even watched where they laid the body. I mean, he had changed her life. He had made the darkness go away, and she just wanted to be where he was, even if it was the end. I'm just even going to walk to the grave. You may have done that, gone to someone's grave and just mourned. It's a natural part. I want to ask a question. This is like the heart-probing question for the day. Who are you without Jesus? And you can kind of fall into 2 camps. Like maybe you're like, I don't follow Jesus. I don't live for him. I just came because it's Easter and I'm just trying to learn something about it. Okay, who are you? Who are you now? And if you are someone that's decided to be a Christian and live for Jesus, who were you before? What has he done about that? What has he changed in you? If you're honest with yourself, who were you before Jesus got a hold of your life? Some of us were angry. We were just angry. Stuff had happened in our life and it built up walls around everything around us and we just couldn't, and it consumed us. Some of us were driven. What I mean is the only thing that matters is success and abundance and money and stuff and cars and houses and clothes and shoes and nice phones and computers and technology and boats and vacation houses. And that's, if I don't get any of that, it don't matter. What does it look like on the inside? I don't know, but I look pretty good on the outside. Some of us were living there. Some of us were lost in something that you're not proud of. A relationship, an addiction, a mindset. You just were stuck in it. Some of us were numb. Like, I don't care. I'm just going to work, eat, sleep, repeat till I get to stop doing that. Mary Magdalene could say, before Jesus, 7 demons. That's who she was before Jesus. And so she walks to the tomb to prepare the body, knowing exactly who she used to be, and knowing exactly what it meant when Jesus found her. And that's what Mary's carrying with her to the tomb, not just ointment and spices, but the knowledge of who she was before, and the understanding of who she is now because Jesus has set her free. And so we get back to John chapter 20. I told you we'd get back there. And we pick up at verse 11. We're going to skip down a little bit. Peter and John get involved, but they get plenty of stage time. Let's go back to Mary. Verse 11. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. That's what you do at a grave. And as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. And she saw something. She saw 2 angels in white. And they were sitting where the body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. There was kind of this bench inside this cave area where Jesus' body had been laid. Verse 13, they asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "Why am I crying? Where have you been?" "Well, they've taken my Lord away," she said. "I don't know where they put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she didn't even realize it was Jesus. Can you imagine that? And he asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "Why do people keep asking me that?" "Who is it you're looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you've carried him away, would you please tell me where you put him, and I will get him?" She's so deep in her grief that she can't even see right in front of her that she's talking to Jesus. First of all, angels appeared in the tomb, and she's not even fazed by that. Whatever. Where is he? And then you ever had that moment where you're like, your head is down and you turn around and you bump into somebody? That's what I picture. Jesus is standing there like, he's ready to be like, "Hey." And she's like, boom. And she doesn't even look up. I imagine she's crying and her head is down. And she thinks he's the gardener, which I think that's great. Like there's a gardener before sunrise on Sunday morning at the graveyard. But I guess that makes sense to her. Maybe you've been there. One of those moments where you're just so distraught, so broken, so empty, so full of fear, like whatever it is. You can't even see in front of you. You can't even see. There could be goodness and answers and people right there. God himself could walk in and you miss him. Because you know what, guys, we got to realize this. It hurts to hurt. It hurts to hurt. It doesn't matter sometimes what you give somebody to make it better. Because if they're hurting, it hurts. But then it happens. Verse 16. Then Jesus said to her, "Mary." One word. Her name. And he had said this word to her so many times. I like to imagine that when he first encountered her and she was possessed by demons, that maybe that's the word he said. Something powerful about someone who loves you saying your name. And so she turned towards him and she snaps out of it. You have those cues. You hear a thing, and it's like, wait, I know that voice. And she cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which is the Aramaic word for teacher, but not the formal word. The formal word is rabbi. Rabboni is like the really affectionate. It's like calling your father daddy, right? It's like a more affectionate term. Maybe your favorite teacher in high school, or this person that changed her life. And then she must have just wrapped her arms around him, because verse 17 says, Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God." And in verse 18, Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them all the things he had said to her. The first person commissioned, told to go tell someone else about the risen Jesus was Mary Magdalene. It wasn't Peter. It wasn't John. It wasn't all these hotshots that are going to get their names written in stone and churches named after them and all kinds of stuff. It was Mary Magdalene, a woman whose past was defined by 7 demons, but whose present is defined by the fact that the God of the universe just said her name. She didn't wait to have all the answers. She didn't try to stop and get all her theology figured out. She just ran. She just ran and told people about what she had seen. By the way, that is the entire assignment. Go tell people what you've seen. For you and me. We don't have to get all of our theology perfect. We don't have to be in a place where we know all the answers. We just have to say, "I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I once had 7 demons, but I just saw the risen Jesus." That's the story. It's all the evidence that you need. Now, I want to stop here for a minute, because Easter is a Sunday where Christians around the world, we celebrate something insane. We celebrate that we believe that, can I remind you what we believe? God, okay, created the universe, right? He made himself into a human being. So he shoves all of that into a human body, sometime in the 1st century, in poverty. That whole story's crazy. Wait till Christmas. We'll talk about it again. And then he comes up and he just starts teaching to the masses. And then he's executed by religious leaders for political reasons and theological reasons. And then we believe this about Jesus, that he died, and then 3 days later he rose from the dead. Christians believe that. And maybe you don't believe that today. I don't blame you. That's a crazy thing to believe unless someone can show me some evidence of that. People do not raise from the dead. So why do we believe it? There are a lot of reasons. I'm going to give you a couple. I want to give you my favorite one right now. I've been just on this. If you watch the Chosen TV show, like stick through it. Start at the beginning and work your way all the way to season 5. And like Mary Magdalene just rises to the top. It was great that I was working on this, and my family sat down and we watched season 5 of The Chosen. We hadn't even watched it yet. We watched it all last week, which is perfect because it actually all happens the week before Jesus is crucified. So it was pretty cool. So that's just a little commercial for them. They didn't pay me for that. And it really jumped out at me to say, wow, Mary's story is important. Why do people believe Jesus raised from the dead? Why do people believe that Jesus raised from the dead? The fact that Mary Magdalene is the prime witness of the resurrection is actually one of the strongest arguments that it actually happened. In the 1st century, a woman's testimony was not admissible into a court of law. Did you know that? If you were a woman and you saw something happen, and they were like, I saw it happen, they'd be like, okay, did a man see it? Come on, y'all want to fight over that, right? Me too. But that's just the way it was. Now, even a century later, it was still that way. And it's still that way in some places of the world. There was this Greek philosopher, his name was Celsus. He mocked early Christians, and he said this: the whole resurrection story was just a myth based on the testimony of hysterical women. Like, the worldwide is looking at the testimony of a woman as not something to be trusted. Again, I would rather a woman tell me something than a man a lot of times. But here's the question. If you were making this story up, if you were in a group of 1st century men who were like, hey guys, let's invent a religion that's going to bamboozle the whole world. Let's do it. Oh, well, we got to prove that he rose from the dead. I'm going to tell you what you wouldn't do. You would not be like, hey, there was this woman, and she saw it. Yeah, she came and told us all about it. Oh, what kind of woman? Well, she was, before she met Jesus, she was possessed by demons. But we're not going to talk much about that because you would never do that. Historians have this phrase that we use called the criterion of embarrassment. And this is what the criterion of embarrassment is. If a detail in an ancient account would have been embarrassing or counterproductive to the point people were trying to make, it would never have been included. And so if it is included, it is almost certainly true. That's historians say that. The criterion of embarrassment. Go look that up. It's fun stuff. So the fact that all 4 gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, place Mary Magdalene at the center of the resurrection story means either they're terrible at telling stories and convincing people, or it actually happened. Let me tell you another piece of evidence. This all happened in a place called Jerusalem. It's still there today. You can go visit Jerusalem right now. I wouldn't go right now, but you can go some other day. Jesus' crucifixion and burial happened right at Jerusalem. And days later, people walk around like, I saw Jesus. He came and saw me in my house. And people could have been like, I think we could just walk to the grave right now and prove that he's in there. No one was able to provide that evidence. In fact, the evidence they did find was that the tomb was actually empty. And I saw him too. Jesus appeared to over 500 people in the days following his resurrection. So much evidence. One more piece of evidence that I'll give you. This, for me, it was a game changer when I was a younger man and I learned this. You know, the disciples believed in the resurrection. The disciples believed in the resurrection. These are the closest followers of Jesus. Okay, that's who the disciples were. There were 12 of them. And these guys, when Jesus was arrested, they freaked out. They ran and hid because the same people who arrested Jesus, they feared were going to come after them and get them. Just like you see in a lot of military conflicts. If you're going to take out the main leader, you got to find out who his lieutenants are. You got to get them too because we're afraid they're going to raise to prominence and then cause another uprising, right? So they're all terrified. Peter and John and also Mary come back to him. They're like, he rose from the dead. A couple of them are like, I'm going to need to see that. So Jesus is like, okay. Poof. And he appears and they're like, okay, I believe you now. And days later, these dudes who are hiding in their closets in fear are preaching on street corners. I saw Jesus raised from the dead. You can't convince me otherwise. Literally, look in the book of Acts. You'll find, I think it's around chapter 4, these guys get arrested by the exact same people who killed Jesus. Arrest these guys, bring them in and say, stop it. Stop telling people Jesus rose from the dead. And they said, no. And you know what those leaders did? Well, okay, and let them go. Did Jesus rise from the dead? I think so. Maybe you got more questions. I want to invite you to something. Damon mentioned earlier a class that we have called Pathways. Pathways is really a class that helps you take next steps with our church family. And so this is volunteering and what's the story of our church. But there's another class we offer, and it's going to be happening starting the next week on April 26th. It's called Foundations. Foundations is, it used to be called Venture Basics. So a lot of you have taken Venture Basics. We're kind of renaming our classes to kind of get a good plan for people to take a series of classes and learn some stuff. If you got questions about who is God, who is Jesus, did he really raise from the dead, is the Bible reliable? That's a huge one. I'm sitting here holding this ancient book and telling you this is truth. Why do I believe that? This class is only 4 weeks long, and it goes through some of the most compelling evidences for all of those things. In your seats, there's a little piece of paper. Take that home with you, scan it, do it. It's 4 weeks. There's lunch provided. It's going to be really good. It's here at the church building. If you haven't taken it, I think everybody at our church should have this class because it's a great way to be able to share with your friends, why do Christians believe what they believe? I'm going to tell you, a lot of people come to faith in this class. And so check it out. That QR code will take you to the page where you can sign up for it. So go ahead and do that today before you leave if you want to. But that brings us to where we are today. It's Easter Sunday. Mary Magdalene has walked up to the tomb and she's run to tell the disciples, and this is what I want to see. The one who was lost has now been found. And her change was the evidence of God's goodness. What do people see in your life? Are you transformed because of who Jesus is? It's a process. It doesn't happen in one day. But I love watching people come from being way far from God and get closer and closer and closer and closer. And then one day you find them leading a Bible study. I want to talk to you about this kid with 5 earrings and orange hair who gets to preach to a group of people every single week. Not because I got it together, but because God is good. And I want my life to be the evidence that Jesus changes people. And so what has God done in your life? Do people see the change? Take that with you. That's all the evidence you need. Go tell people what you saw. And there's another group of people I want to talk to. Maybe you haven't accepted that for yourself. Becoming a Christian is not as simple as changing your religious status on Facebook. Believe it or not, Bible doesn't mention that anywhere. It has a lot to do, though, with proclaiming my faith and taking actions towards it and saying, I accept the grace of God. This morning, we filled up our baptistry. We don't have any baptism scheduled today. We wanted to be ready. The resurrection of Jesus tells the story of all of us. In fact, that's what baptism does. That we join Jesus in death, burial, and resurrection. Do you need that change? Maybe you haven't had 7 demons, but you have one. Or you got a past. Or you're just super selfish. Or you're just seeking after your own kingdom all the time. Can I invite you to lay that down and start a new life with Jesus today? Some of our elders will be standing at the back of the room in just a minute if you want to do that. It doesn't have to be immediately. You can go home, grab a change of clothes. You can go home wet. A couple years ago on Easter, a guy went home soaking wet. He got baptized in his jeans. It was awesome. I did say, you can take your shoes off. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's a good idea. See? They're coming after you. We got sound? There we go. Guys, the change is evident. I love this community. I love what God does through all of us. And I want to invite you to be part of the search party. Because this world out here needs Jesus. And they don't need him just so they can come and have something to do on Easter Sunday. But it's about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, at work, at home, at play, raising kids, trying to figure out how to be married, trying to figure out how to be single, trying to figure out how to use the internet, trying to figure out how to spend my money, And Jesus comes in and he alters all of that. So here's my challenge for us this week. It's pretty simple. You can do this. You can do this week. As a response to the amazing gift of Jesus and the resurrection, here's my challenge for you. Commit to coming to church for 4 consecutive Sundays. Let me tell you why. We're about to start a study through the book of John. We just read John 20. That's at the end. What happens before that? We're going to spend 11 weeks in the book of John, okay? And I want to encourage you to come for the first 4 of them. And if you don't like it, you get a full refund, which means you can stay home in bed. But Jesus should change us, and it should change our routine. And let's not make Easter the only time of the year we come to church. But let's make every single day a celebration of the resurrection. And I hope to see all of you back here for the next 4 weeks, and as you start bringing your friends. Because, guys, there's revival happening in our country. There's revival happening in our city, and we are part of it right here, right now. Happy Easter. Let's pray.